All right, everybody. We've got another very special returning guest. Everybody, welcome back to the show, Dave Swartz. Welcome, Dave.
Hey man, yeah, sorry I had my robot sit in for the last interview because apparently I lost a year of time somewhere. But
It's okay.
thanks for.
It's okay.
Can I ask you really quick about for the people watching on video that art behind you? Is that all that's all your stuff behind you there?
Yeah. So I'm a comic book artist by day. It's like my main gig. But I do a lot of different art.
Hmm.
Abstract art is kind of a big thing that I've been doing the last couple of years. I love it a lot because it's sort of the opposite of comic book art, where like
Right.
comics, it's very, this is the plan, you have to execute the plan, it has to go through a committee. So at least with the abstract art, it's just throw paint down on the canvas, move the canvas around, see what happens kind of thing. And yeah, it's a lot more experimental.
It's a lot of like sunburst stuff. And is that what you're? Because like a lot of the so people who are just listening to audio, there's a lot of like canvases behind it, but it does look like you just threw paint at it for some of those. Is that what you're doing? Like flicking paint at it and
Largely, yeah.
yeah. Wow, that's
I
cool.
have a lot of fun with just, putting a huge cloth over my dining room table and putting down a giant canvas and just bringing out the
That's
paint,
awesome.
literally just whipping it down,
Hmm.
and seeing what happens. And, I feel like it's a practice in color theory,
Hmm. Yep.
knowing like, okay, I laid this down. Now I need to figure out something else to complement it or to help balance whatever the hell I did,
Hmm.
and let the paint in a way kind of like inform what I do next.
That's cool.
Rather than like, all right, here's the script. Panel 3 is whatever.
Yeah. Right.
Like I've got to make sure that I'm capturing this mood, So it's like I said, it's a nice sort of um, side thing to get my
Yeah.
creative juices going in a different way.
It's
It's
like
like
artistic jam banding. Like
Yeah,
you start off with a riff, and then just somebody jumps in, and
yeah. I never thought about it like that, but yeah.
yeah. It's like getting back at the script writer, like, well, I don't need to draw this box or do this scene. I'll do what I want. I'm in control. Like,
I'm
I'll
sure.
show you.
all those damn writers out there.
I'm not gonna do 9 panels. Fuck that.
I started with that. I was like, oh god, what are you doing right now?
Oh man, I'm sorry. That's wrong.
Yeah,
It's like when I read Watchmen, I'm like, what the hell were they thinking, man? Like, who signed off on this shit?
Dude, I was thinking when you said that when they did Doomsday Clock,
Hmm.
and somebody's grand idea was like, let's have Gary Frank do a 9-panel grid.
Yeah, it's like you'll never see the book. See the book in 12 months, guys.
yeah.
Oh my god. Well, that's really cool that you have that other outlet that's completely opposite of what you're doing now. And you have a few things going on today, so I guess we could just jump right into some of the stuff we want to talk about. You were talking about a follow up to the Vampire Detective in Space
Mhm.
book. Just wrapped up a noir version, like
Yeah,
a
we're
noir
actually,
story.
well, we're in sort of production right
Okay.
now. Just started, a few pages. Um, really now kind of getting going with it.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's a collaboration again with Caleb Bonquist, the writer
Yep.
of Detective in Space and Unicorn Vampire Hunter,
Oh yeah.
Dragon Grit series, a bunch of other things. Those things just kind of popped to my mind. But yeah, I know Caleb is great. I've been actually working for him since almost the beginning of my like modern kind of career in comics. I was
Cool.
a self-publisher there for the first few years, and then made the transition into just being a full-time artist, self-publisher on the side. Um, So with Caleb, yeah, we did Detective in Space, the first like arc. I think it was like a 4 issue series. Um, and we did some collaborations with the crossover series that you has with the Space and
Hmm.
Unicorn Vampire Hunter colliding into each other's universes.
Oh yeah.
Super fun, very cool, short little contained stories. But then he approached me a couple weeks ago, and just said, "Hey man, like this idea follow up to Vampires in Space, but it's going to be like a noir story." So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. And he kind of gave me the rundown of what it was about. It made sense, and it sold me. And I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool, clever. So if you guys want to go check it out, you can check it out. But the Kickstarter just wrapped on it just a couple of days. I'm sure we're going to probably do it. So
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
And I'll just say right away, like, as somebody that loves like crime noir comics,
It's right up Chris's alley.
Yeah, and I love Vampire Detective in Space from the beginning, but this issue in particular, when I saw it, I was just like, I was so in love with the pages you put down for both. I mean, I enjoy your art very much, but also just he created the sequence that's very tropey noir that we think of, like the black and white, like, and then she walked into my office, like that.
It would be rude if she walked into the secretary.
Yeah. It's so great, and then you panel them out so perfectly to make the whole thing work.
Thank you. Like I said, I've been really enjoying my collaborations with Caleb. This one in particular, I think is a departure from a lot of the stuff that I typically do. Did a comic, I want to say it was last year, maybe it was the year before. I think it was last year. I came in on this series called Metropius, and it's very much that noir like style book, black and white, set in this big city of metropolis, right? So it was a very interesting book, a lot of architecture, a lot of Art Deco stuff. And I'm kind of bringing that experience into this book with Caleb. And I think it's better for it, because I had a lot of practice with how to make these cityscapes look cool and interesting and a little bit fresh, because we've sort of seen this a lot. So we kind of have to figure out ways of making it kind of new and interesting. But yeah, it's been a fun book so far. Still a bunch of pages I got to finish, but we'll get there soon.
Yeah, that's cool. And I know we talked about some other stuff that's like, all crazy different types of genres, and there's a Kickstarter out right now with almost 20 days to go called Recon and the Little One. If you want to talk about that a little bit, because this book looks like giant robots and zombies.
Yeah. So
looks awesome.
That book is a book written by Sean Wood. He's been working with me for the last several months trying to produce this first issue of our new series together, because he's got a couple other issues to go with this one. This is just issue 1. And like I was telling you guys at the start before we began, I just wrapped on this I think yesterday. So I'm just going back over things and just fine tooth combing it before I send it off. But it's zombies and robots. I mean, what else could you want?
Yeah, right.
It's a story about a humanity where zombies are created because we have eaten so much processed food that our bodies start to literally decompose.
Nice.
So they're more leafy and kind of naturey almost in a way, versus being like dead corpses. But I do kind of play into the corpse sort of design where if you remove some of their grassy skin, their bones have turned to wood, so they have little bits of leaves and things that are coming out of them, little weeds
awesome.
that grow out of their knees or whatever. So I was trying to bring a fresh sort of look to the zombies, even though at first glance they look like regular zombies. But the more you kind of digest it, you kind of realize they're just decomposing people, and turning into literal compost. I have this concept of seeing a zombie in the future of the series where he's just like a compost pile, just erupting out of that. But yeah, and then sort of the human race developed these robots to fight the zombies, but the zombies apparently won. So all the robots are kind of decommissioned, and there's this one in particular that's is woken up by the sound of this human girl, who apparently is still mysteriously alive. So his programming kicks in, and he just needs to save her. So he's just protecting her and trying its best to get her to safety. It's a fun book. I mean, it's got a lot of very cool scenes in it. Sean gave me lots of really good material to go wild with. There's a scene there where he transforms his hands into giant blowtorches, and he just literally lights everybody on fire. So I have like 2 scenes full of just like fiery panels constantly. So yeah, it's been a really fun project to get.
And how did you adapt your style for this book? Like, I see it's a lot more bloody than the other stuff I've seen you do.
Yeah, you know, I was, when I was talking to you guys at the beginning, you know, I really wanted to make sure that whatever project that I approach always has the right style for the story, rather than like my style and just always my style. You know, I think that it works for certain artists, and if that's their intention, you know, sure, go for it. But for me, I think, you know, especially when I'm doing my own work, you know, I feel like I need to sort of approach the art slightly differently. I mean, it's not like I'm, you know, taking away this signature way in which I draw. You know, like I have chiseled jaws and I'm a very angular kind of artist. But when it comes to like how much detail I put into it, how much painting do I put into it? Is it a little bit more on the animated style side of the spectrum versus, you know, something that's more realistic? And so I kind of push and pull that a little in order to match what I feel is right for the story. Especially for something like Recon and the Little One, you know, it is a very bloody adult kind of story, but at the same time, like there's this little girl who's part of the story, and the writer Sean wanted the look of it to be a little bit more, you know, I hesitate to say family friendly because it's a lot of bloody, you know, carnage, but
Right.
a little bit more, you know, acceptable for a wider range of an audience.
I mean, just looking at the pages, and not to just put a label on your art or anything, but it's almost like flipping through these pages reminds me of something like an Invincible Universe style book.
I get compared to
I was thinking the same thing
all the time.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And I just like for our listeners and our viewers out there, if you want like a description, it does feel like a Ryan Otley book, which is, I mean, it's great, right? I mean, I love that art, but it's like it has like a popness to it, but also there's blood and guts.
When I was even thinking, like, maybe it's just on the mind because we're in the middle of it, but the cartoon, where it's very much an adult cartoon,
Right.
but, like, you could see that same style being used for the next, like, I don't know, Superman cartoon or something, you know, and it working.
right.
Yep.
And I think that was sort of my goal, is to balance the two. I don't think I was necessarily thinking Invincible when I did it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there are moments in a lot, especially the more bloody scenes.
Yeah,
Telling
right.
Ryan off, just like,
Yeah.
how does he make it look so dynamic? You know?
Yeah, right. You know, and before we move on to the next project, I do want to say you did the colors for this book too.
Typically do my
And okay, and I see a lot more with this book, like dark purples, like darker backdrops and such. That's something you picked to do for this book specifically. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the issue 1, you know, the whole thing starts off at night.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
so I wanted to make sure that there was this sense of dread, because after all, like, that's sort of the motivation behind getting these two characters coming together. So I wanted them to definitely feel like it is almost a horror movie from the beginning. And then, you know, as the issue progresses, you know, we set into this like mall where they stay for the night, and they wake up, and then they immediately are bombarded by zombies. You know, so, you know, transitioning from something that's a little darker to something that's a little brighter. You know, I think that helped to, again, help balance that feeling or the mood of what we were trying to convey.
Cool. And I think just so our fans know this too, like, you know, the Kickstarter page is out there, and there's a couple unique rewards on there, like that handmade statue of the robot, which is really awesome.
When he sent that to me, I flipped out.
Yeah.
Did you design that statue?
No, he did it without me. I mean,
that's crazy.
He took
Yeah.
my art and gave it to a sculptor, and
It's amazing.
Apparently, I just learned this the other day. Sean said that this guy used to either used to or currently still does work for Disney.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
it's amazing.
Yeah, he's got a lot of experience, obviously, and a lot of it he showed. it's made out of like metal parts too. Like it's not
Oh, that's
all
so
like
cool.
sculpted.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really cool and well done. And it's the first time I've ever had a statue made of some of my designs. So I thought that was like pretty cool.
It's
when I
it's
first
really
saw it.
cool, yeah, to see that 3D rendering of it. And then you could also, if you pay for that, another reward tier. I think it's going to be you, Dave, drawing somebody as a zombie in the book.
Yeah. So even though I've wrapped the book,
Yeah,
I'm obviously going to go back in and we're going to get the references and I'm just going to swap little heads out. Maybe
yeah,
if they're wearing something very specific, I'll swap in a shirt or something like that.
that's cool.
If I think it's cool and, would add something to the story. But
Yeah,
it's funny you should also bring that up because if Eagle Eye readers, get it, and I can't remember exactly what page it is, but I did put Sean, the writer, in as one of the zombies as well,
oh, that's
who's getting
awesome.
his head just obliterated. So yeah,
That's amazing.
it's funny because I did that as a joke for him. Like he didn't write it in, like I want to be
Right.
a zombie. But I had this little moment and I was like, oh, it'd be so cool if I just drew Sean in there and see
Yeah.
if he notices.
Uh-huh.
And he did, and he was like, is that me? Yeah, absolutely, it's you. So
That's awesome.
yeah, we made
That's
sure
amazing.
his outfit matches like his work uniform,
Mhm.
so his like work shirt and khakis and stuff. So
That's great.
That's funny. I almost want to back that tier just to see how you do the beard.
it's a bit patchy. I'll say it's a bit patchy.
That's awesome. All right, we got to talk about the next project. We got a couple more to talk about, but this one Chris and I had talked about previously, Dino Nights, the once and future night.
Yeah.
So your art's shifting now to more Saturday morning cartoon style. You talked a little bit about, right? Can you talk about this project?
Yeah, absolutely. I love Dino Nights. It's been a project I've been working on for several years with Zach Chapman behind the scenes. So he's just now getting around to putting it out there and starting a crowdfunder campaign for the whole series. From what I understand, his plan is to hit everybody like every 2 months with a new issue. So it really has a lot of momentum, which I think is smart. I mean, and so Zach and I, like I said, have been working on this for a couple of years now. It's basically Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but dinosaurs.
Amazing.
And there's, more of a time travel kind of aspect to it. So instead of being created by the ooze, they're actually like part of a race that's from a different time that gets like displaced through time in our modern times. And then the main character, the Leonardo leader kind of character, accidentally gets sent back too far into Arthurian times, and he grows up there. But a twist of fate brings him forward to meet his brothers and sisters in our more modern day New York. So it's like you said, very Saturday '90s, morning cartoon kind of thing. Again, a lot more kind of animated style to the way that I approach the work, and I wanted to also give it a very bright and colorful, color scheme. Something that would be akin to the '90s.
I gotta say, you probably don't very often get to draw a like dinosaur mage messing with a D&D table.
Yeah.
All in one page is kind of epic.
There were a couple pages in there where I had to draw, 5 different dino humanoid characters surrounding a D&D table in a comic book shop. So
That's amazing. Yeah.
There's just like a lot to draw there.
Yeah.
And Zach apologized a few times, like, I'm sorry, bro, I know it's a lot, but like, I really need this castle to like be detailed. Like, okay, all right. But it was again a fun challenge. I really enjoyed this one in particular. It gave me, I think, more challenge than any because it was a lot of not only how do I design these characters, but how do I make them look, dino enough that it sells the idea, but not too dino that like you lose like the fun, quirky qualities about them. So like one of the things very subtle, the main character, the Leonardo character, or I shouldn't really say that, but like the Leonardo archetype character, he's a little bit more Dino-like, because in my opinion, he was like sort of displaced through time a little differently. So maybe as he evolved a little different. So he has a tail. He's got 3 fingers instead of 4, whereas the others don't have any tails. They have 4 fingers. They're a little more human.
Okay.
But very slightly, you know. But again, it again offers me this ability to like just play around with it, see what works, what doesn't work, versus jumping into a series that's already established, you know, and I'm just redrawing someone else's designs. This was fun.
Yeah, I love the way you design these characters too. Like, and they've got such a '90s, especially the Triceratops has like a '90s, almost like punk rock aesthetic to it, which just makes me smile.
Zach did a really clever thing, I think, in writing, where the character descriptions that I got each came with a genre of music that they would listen to. And that cool. Like really helped me to, you know, like the Donatello archetype character, Ava, you know, she has more of that like technology, you know, like Donatello would. So she wears kind of like a tech backpack, but she listens to hip hop. So I was like, oh, like I'm going to give her like a set of headphones, like a big old set of headphones just to like, you know, show that that's part of the character, even though you may not know it. But like she likes to just sort of pop her headphones on every once in a while. And I felt like that was very indicative of that culture. And then, you know, like the Percy character is more the Michelangelo character. You know, he's into punk rock. So like he's got like that punk look, like the buttons on the like jean jacket with the sleeves torn off, you know, the little wrist, I can't remember what they're called, but like, you know, those like punk rock like wristband things.
Yeah, like the armlet.
The studded.
Yeah, the studded wristband.
Yeah,
exactly. Studded. That's what I was thinking about. But yeah, and then like the grunge, you know, like flannel like around his waist, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So again, like I feel like even a small, and this is something for writers, you know, even like a small detail, like what music does the character listen to, can like really influence the overall approach to like the design. Because I did a bunch of different designs for each one. I usually do about 3 different versions before we like try to pick and choose what we like, what we don't like, and amalgamize that into the new design. And I did the same for all these characters. I mean, I gave him 3 different options. And each time, you know, I think he made the smart decisions. You know, like I honestly think these characters couldn't have been any better because of Zach's, you know, particular way of going about doing, you know, the descriptions for each. So
cool. Yeah, and for that pre-launch page too, I mean, it's basically your art promoting it right now, which is like, I mean, it's doing great because you look at it and you immediately want to be notified of the book. No. That's what's doing it right now. I mean, you look at these pages and you're like, how do you not want to back this book? It looks awesome. So, yeah.
One quick like 2-part question.
Sure.
To kind of wrap up the Dino Nights conversation. How much of an influence was the show Dinosaurs on this, and how many references did you make in the series?
I mean, I think in little ways it was, because, you know, like obviously that's another fairly, well, of our generation, fairly well-known, like, you know, Dino person kind of, you know, story. I think in ways like the Triceratops like character was very much kind of rooted within some of that, I think. I don't know if I explicitly put anything from that show in this somewhere, but I mean, I don't see why I couldn't in the future. I mean, Zach definitely has plans to, you know, develop, if obviously if the Kickstarter does well, which I'm sure it will. You know, I'm sure he has other ideas of where he wants to take this series, you know, so I'd be curious to see what I could do with that. That would be kind of
fun. Any chance I get to talk about Dinosaurs, the Jim Henson sitcom?
Yeah, it never really pops up. Yeah, I forgot about that. All right, so let's wrap up with what we're here for today. You have the pre-launch page going on for the final Confederate Monster 1 through 5.
I believe when you're all listening to this, it'll be live.
Okay, good, awesome. So it's live right now on Kickstarter. So yeah, let's start there. Give us the lowdown on Confederate Monster.
Sure. So as I mentioned before, you know, I have a self-publishing book that I do. It's called Confederate Monster. It's basically Frankenstein meets the Civil War. That incorporates all the classic Frankenstein characters, just set in the future about 8 years after the original monster was reanimated. And so we catch up on all these characters, where they have been, what they've been up to. But the main character is Igor. And Igor has been posing as a reconstructive surgeon for soldiers that were amputated and come back from the war. And so he is basically just been hiding, trying to live a normal life with his new wife, until the Confederacy finds out about him and his secret, and they kidnap him and convince him to reanimate their dead army. So it's sort of one of those, like, historical twist type stories, with characters that everybody is very familiar with, but in a different kind of ways. So I have my version of the Frankenstein monster is more like a cowboy. So he wears, like, the traditional sort of cowboy getup, and he's a lot more kind of with it and intelligent. Victor, when we first meet him, is absolutely insane because he's been locked up in an insane asylum for 8 years. He's just like biting the heads off of rats and just like garbled gook coming out of his mouth. And then we have a different version of the bride, and that kind of plays into Igor is named Daniel in my series, so I always refer to him as Daniel. But yeah, Daniel kind of gets the crap kicked out of him physically and emotionally through the series. So it's a story about the monstrosity of the Confederacy in that time, but also exploring the monstrous side of literally every character in the book. And I think that's why I settled on that for the title, because I thought it was the most indicative for the entire series as a whole.
I think we all want to start with the most important question, which is, what's up with this Frankenstein horse?
So I had to, in doing research for the book, I did a lot of Civil War era research specifically about the characters that I wanted to bring forward that were historically accurate. So the villains are the Confederates, but obviously I needed like specific avatars to represent that. So General Bedford Forrest and General Stonewall Jackson are sort of my two main like bad dudes, but Stonewall Jackson is kind of known for having been killed by friendly fire. And so one of the things that I wanted to do is like use him as an undead, like the first test subject. So that's sort of what we see in issue 4, where they decide to bring him back first, and he's sort of the leader of this like horde of undead Confederates. But then I also wanted to like play some of that historical accuracy into it. So like one of the things that I heard is that like he got killed by friendly fire while he was on horseback. So I was like, okay, well it's one thing to get shot, but it'd be another thing if maybe he like exploded. So then I thought, well, what if he was exploded while he was on a horse? And what if they decided to bring his horse back, because a lot of these guys had a deep relationship with their horse, right?
Yeah.
So I thought like, oh, that'd be cool on the cover to like show him on this undead horseback, and then the horse's face is like kind of busted up, like his face is all busted up.
It's awesome.
So it's like I want to be accurate in ways, but at the same time, like it's supposed to be fresh and new and exciting. So like I need to figure out ways to like weave those little parts in there,
really
so
cool.
that when someone looks at the cover like you did and go like, what was up with that? I want to see that. I want to read that.
What's the comic book science behind it?
Yeah. So gotta get
awesome.
into the psychology of it all in order to
Yeah,
attention.
for sure. I think the historical accuracy too. I mean, come on, that's pretty. It's awesome.
Well, yeah, I guess I've seen with in this upcoming issue that is about to launch, I have a scene where the two Confederate generals are talking with Robert E. Lee, and true to his history, Robert E. Lee was a very devout, I think it was Catholic, Christian, I can't remember, but he was a very religious man, and so I thought he wouldn't go along with this plan to like reanimate a dead body, you know, and
Right.
like they're playing God.
Yeah.
So I had a little scene in there with that because I wanted to explain, like, well, why are these two guys in charge of all this and not like the one dude that we kind of know as the head honcho, you know?
Right. Right.
So I put that in there just to explain that fact, but then also show like the ruthlessness of these two guys because they were the ones that were behind his like death or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, he won't take part in the reanimating of people, but he'll do all this other bad shit.
Exactly. And again, that's sort of like
Yeah.
the thing about the story is like showing like there is this sort of quality of like good and the bad and bad and the good, you know, and how like everybody can have a monster side, but it's like degrees of monster, you know.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Yeah, and a man's hypocrisy, you know, we all have them, and we've seen them throughout time. So
yeah.
Right.
Yep. It's really cool on the pre-launch page, but it should be up. The book should be up by the time this episode releases, but you do have some early bird stuff up there now that I want people to be aware about for the first 48 hours, right? You have like a bundle and some other sketches and stuff you're doing.
Yeah. If you are able to hear this before the first 48 hours is up, you have an opportunity to get a really good sale price on my featured bundle, which is a digital physical copy of issue 5. An art print, 6x9 art print done by me, a coaster, a sticker, and then I'm also going to include a tiny like trade card sort of size commission bust. So any character that you want, I'll take your request through a Kickstarter survey when I'm done. But then you get all of that for $26, which is
that's awesome.
Good. I mean, I calculate. So after all the first 48 hours is up, that feature bundle goes up to $30, and I take away the commission. So if you want to get a good deal on it, because it's like I think I counted, it's like a $44 savings if you get it, within the first 48 hours.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna make the little commissions available as an add-on later, but it'll be a little more expensive.
Rightfully so, though. I mean, come on, that's like art people are buying, actually commissioned art, which is crazy. That's an awesome deal you're doing.
I love doing it. I mean, honestly, I love doing the little tiny, commissions, and I've been doing the larger, well, not large. I call it a mini commission. It's a 5x7, so it's not quite as big as say like a backing board or like an 8x10 or something like that. But I still like doing those and doing them, kind of quick and dirty, but at the same time they got that like hand done kind of quality to them, which I don't usually do a lot. I do a lot of my stuff digital now, so
that's cool.
Have you done commissions like this in the past? Like
yeah. I've been actually doing the commission thing with all of my Kickstarters for quite a while. But I did it for the last one. I think I can't remember how many I actually did, but I did a good handful, and I wound up actually deciding not to do pen and ink. I did these colored pencil ones.
Oh, cool!
Turned out cool. Actually, I have one right here.
Nice.
Yeah, this was like a test that I did, but
oh damn!
Yeah,
that's really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, just playing around with it, seeing what I could come up with.
It's pretty detailed. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Has anyone ever requested something where you were just like, nah, I'm not doing that?
Yeah.
No, not really.
Okay, that's good.
No, like Mecha Hitlers or anything.
No. I mean, I've never done any. I've never been asked yet to do anything that I didn't immediately go like, nah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I actually just did my very first like fully hardcore like sex scene in a comic book, which was again
written by Pat Shand, right?
Absolutely written by Pat Shand. I'm not even joking.
Oh really?
I mean, if you got to do it and you want a successful Kickstarter, it's got to be Pat Shand, right? Come on. I love that. Yeah, he does.
I love that, man.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's funny. You should nail it right like literally.
Just fucking around too.
So, it was an interesting challenge. It was another noir story. That was fun. But no, I've never really, approached anything, at least not yet. where I've been like, yeah, I'm not gonna touch that with a 20-foot pole.
Mhm.
All right, Mike, we have our mission.
Yeah. Some egregious furry shit. I don't know. We'll see. We have heard in the past of like some of our guests are like, yeah, I'm not gonna draw furries and all this stuff. And we're like, yeah, they get some weird requests, and it's like, all right, we get it. You know.
I don't know. I'd have
But-
to read the script.
Yeah, right. You'd have to see it first. Yeah.
Or see the paycheck.
Yeah. See the, yes. But I mean, this is a super exciting project. I mean, the
Yeah.
art's amazing. I
Is
think
this-
that yeah.
Is this the final issue?
No, actually, there's one more.
Oh, cool.
Oh, nice.
I planned for 6. I've literally had all 6 scripts written for the last 5 years. I think I finished writing.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first started, it was my COVID project,
Yep.
and I got the first 3 issues done during COVID. And I just wasn't able to finish it. I had to switch over, and do more commission work or work for hire in order to, keep everything afloat. And so I didn't feel at the time like I had the time to do any of it, which I felt horrible about because I had put out half the book and then just sort of like let people sit there like, what the hell, So my wife and I were talking one day, and she, was just saying like, maybe you should just take one day a week and say like, this is your Confederate Monster Day, and just that's what you're going to do that day, and see how long it takes you to get it done. And surprisingly, the last issue, which is issue 4, didn't take very long. I mean, it took a couple of months, but I mean, it didn't take. I thought it would take more than a year, but no, it was doable. And so I'm a good halfway through this next issue. I still got some that I need to finish. But my plan is to do a double final issue for issue 6.
Okay.
Issue 1 is actually a double issue. It's close to 40 pages.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, when I wrote it, I kind of had this thing in my mind where I was like, I want the first sort of issue and the last issue to be very like episodic, and well, not episodic, but like indicative of like a TV show where like you get that first chunk to get you hooked, like 2 episodes, right? So like 2 issues in one. And then the end needs to be like an extended, finale, so that I can give people this feeling like, oh, it really paid off. Like reading this book, I feel like it didn't rush through it to the end, which I think can happen in comics if you're not careful. So that's part of the reason why I want to do a double first issue and a double final issue. Plus, it just gives me more room.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Quick aside for video people, my cat sat on the cord, and I was trying to pull it out from under him, and that's why he like freaked the fuck out right there.
Dorito's just trying to be part of the show.
He's in a mood today, so
I do think that's a cool idea though, to treat it like a season premiere and a season finale. You get a lot more content in both the start and the finish.
And then I mean, it does make it for a really nice beefy trade when it's all done. Because you really do the page count. It's like you did 8 issues instead of 6.
And that's cool.
I've been hoping that I can get more like artists to do some variants for me. Like I have Christian. I'm gonna butcher his last name. Is Dabari?
I don't know.
So I'm gonna go do a print for me for issue 4.
Oh, cool.
It was awesome. I really enjoyed it. A lot of people enjoyed it too. I actually had somebody just the other day message me through the Kickstarter and be like, "Do you have an extra copy of that variant that you had for issue 4?"
Oh, that's awesome.
So I was going to do another one for this issue 5, but the way the budget just worked out, I didn't have it this time. I'm hopeful that for the final, when I do the trade, that I can do a couple of different variants from some other artists and kind of do like a nice little, cover gallery inside the trade somewhere. So we'll see. I don't know.
Cool. That's an awesome idea. So it should be out now, everybody. Dave, it's awesome talking about all your projects you got work going on. I think before we wrap up today, is there anything you want to say about Confederate Monster for our any last words of wisdom or notes about it?
I mean, I think Frankenstein, a cowboy Frankenstein set in Civil War is a pretty good way to sort of
Yeah, it's pretty good.
sell it.
Yep.
I mean, every time I tell that to people, they just like, oh wow. But you know, I think the one thing I will say for anybody who might be on the fence about the word Confederate, because I know that like I have run into some people that come at me like, oh, anything to do with the Confederacy, I'm not going to do anything with. And I get the initial.
Those are unserious people, Dave.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
So I get the initial hesitation for some, but I guess I would just say, you know, I specifically chose the second word, monster, as an attempt to make the conjunction of the two words makes sense that we're utilizing the monstrous side of that group of people. As the villains of the story. You know, I even had a guy the other day come at me on Reddit who was like,
oh God, Reddit's the worst.
If the Confederates win, then I don't want to buy it. And I thought, why did I make them win? What are you talking about? Like, they're obviously the villains, my dude.
Oh no.
Also, I'll just say there's some interesting novels out there about that exact thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's fiction, people. Calm the fuck down.
I know. It kind of just...
And here,
it would be a different story, Dave, if you named the book "The Confederacy Was Right."
Right. Yeah.
You probably wouldn't be on the show right now.
Or like, or like Confederate saviors. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Right.
I think people just want to just be a loud minority about some of these things online and just.
I think people are bored.
Yeah, that too. People need hobbies.
I don't know what it is, but I just wanted to throw that out there for anybody who might be on the fence about it.
I will say Reddit is just bad. Reddit's just bad for everything because like there's a lot of communities where I've tried to share anything positive, whether it's comic books, Magic the Gathering, anything that I'm like, hey, here's this thing, and they're fuck that. Like it's like, all right, well, I'm just never gonna share my thoughts or info with anybody. It's like
keep to myself.
Yeah, I'm just gonna like keep scouring the internet. But anyways, Dave, I'm super glad you got to be with us today. We got to talk about all this stuff. If our listeners want to follow you, where's the best thing to send them to for you?
So my social media handle is basically universally Dave Swartz Art. So just at Dave Swartz Art. Pretty much everywhere you'll be able to find me. Even DaveSwartzArt.com is my website, so it's pretty easy to remember. I just started becoming a little bit more active on Reddit, which is starting to become like pretty useful for me as a marketer.
That's good. I'm glad. That's awesome.
Using it, but I was talking to Sean Wood the other day and showed some helpful tips because it seemed like he was doing well with his freelance page. And he suggested going on the Reddit forums, and I just never tried it before. So the other day I did, and man, I was blowing up,
That's awesome.
Ups and like 20 some.
That's great.
Just like, wow, didn't expect it. So, it's been nice, and I'm just hopeful that if anybody hasn't followed me yet, follow me. Just you choose your preferred method. I'm kind of partial to Instagram myself. I like more the interaction on that platform, but I'm out there.
Cool.
And to everybody out there watching and or listening, check out those show notes because I'll have links to all the projects we talked about. But on top will be that Confederate Monster link for you to check out, and as well as some of the links to Dave's socials. So, Dave, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. Glad that you could stop by, and we look forward to the next time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.